way, please, sir. Did you have an enjoyable journey, sir?
I did.
I understand that a brisk walk is good for the health.
I took a cab.
Very wise, sir. May I take your coat?
Yes, thank you.
If I can just ask you to wait here, please, sir, I will fetch Mrs. Carriere. Please, do not be alarmed. Her knowledge is great, and you may feel perturbed at what she can tell from a single glance.
Good evening, Mr. Johnson. I trust that the journey from Hampstead didn't tire you.
How on earth did you...
Thank you, Bryson. You can retire to the kitchen.
Very good, madam.
I see much, Mr. Johnson. I would ask that you do not smoke your Chesterfields in here. They may interfere with the ether.
How did you know?
I have been blessed, Mr. Johnson. My gift is to reconnect with those that are no longer with us. Death is simply a stepping stone. If you can take a seat on the green chair, you can begin to peer through the veil and perhaps connect with the spirit. I will now communicate with the other side, Mr. Johnson. It is important that you remain seated throughout and that we maintain our connection. To break our hold could have devastating consequences. You may experience things which are hard to explain, and if we are lucky, there may be ectoplasm. If I begin to channel a spirit, then you may ask me questions. Hold my hand, Mr. Johnson.
Your hands are like ice.
I have begun to manifest a bridge between this world and the next. Now I call on the spirits, the great and the powerful. Talk to us here on earth. Join with us. Keep hold, Mr. Johnson. We are ready. We must begin. Can you blow out the candle, please, Mr. Johnson? Is anybody there? If you are there, knock upon the table 3 times. The spirits have made contact. We welcome you, spirits, to our company. The spirits have made contact. Mr. Johnson, do not be alarmed. The spirits are playful tonight. We seek an audience. Look. Look. The spirits are making their connection. Do not worry, Mr. Johnson, they will not harm you.
Ow! What was that?
You may experience several sensations.
Ow!
Behave, you spirits! He is our guest. You may notice the room has suddenly become colder. Keep hold, Mr. Johnson. If you have a message for Mr. Johnson, ring the bell upon the table thrice. 1, 2, 3. That is thrice. Spirit, what is your name?
Anthony.
Anthony. A brother, maybe. Does this make sense to you, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, my brother was called Anthony.
Anthony.
Yes. I believe we are in the presence of Brother Anthony's spirit. Are you the unearthly manifestation of Brother Anthony? He is here with us at the table. He is clutching his body. When he died, there was difficulty with his health.
Yes, he had asthma.
He is coughing. His coughing sometimes made breathing difficult. When he struggled to breathe, people worried about him. He is telling me now that is not the case. He is at peace and watching over you. Was your brother a happy man?
He was.
He's smiling. He's smiling as if with great love and affection. He wishes to talk with you. Call out to him.
Are you there, Anthony?
Send us a message, dearest Anthony, brother of Mr. Johnson.
Do not despair on the 25th. Keep the date and make me proud. Do not argue about the money. And let Lottie grieve as she needs to.
Anthony, thank you for your message. He is fading now. He is fading back into the peaceful beyond. Keep hold, Mr. Johnson. Do not let go of my hand. The spirits are making their connection. I believe there are several coming through. Show yourselves to us. A hand reaching from the other side. Only a great love can create such a vision. A hand grasping to make contact. Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? If you are there, knock twice. The connection is broken. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, that is the limit of the spirit world tonight, but I certainly think we made a connection there. I would be happy to reconnect for you at a later date. Ah, Bryson, Mr. Johnson was wonderful. If you can take his payment and show him out. Good night, Mr. Johnson.
I don't know about you, but I don't think any of that was real. It is 1919, and psychics are on the rise. Exploitative evenings such as this one are becoming commonplace. Now I'm certain it was all nonsense and trickery, and this is how it was done.
This way, please, sir.
The room has been dimly lit and some incense burnt. This gives the general feeling of the occult, apparently.
Did you have an enjoyable journey, sir?
I did. He's fishing for information.
I understand that a brisk walk is good for the health.
I took a cab. The butler has prompted me to explain my journey further. From this he can understand that I am not local, since a local would walk. If I'm ever to return to this psychic, a quick tip to a cab driver would reveal further information about myself that could be passed off as a revelation.
Yes, very wise, sir. May I take your coat?
Yes, thank you.
If you can just wait here, please, sir, I will fetch Mrs. Carriere. Please, do not be alarmed. Her knowledge is great, and you may feel perturbed at what she can tell from a single glance.
quick look on the side of the chair reveals a straight edge. It's been magnetised to the side of it. The legs of the table are hollow, making them exceptionally light. Meanwhile, the butler begins to go furiously through the pockets of my jacket with the psychic. They are in luck. Inside, they find a pocket diary, a case filled with Chesterfield cigarettes, and a letter of condolence from my late brother Anthony from my address in Hampstead. The only problem is, I don't know anyone called Anthony. I don't smoke, and I don't live in Hampstead.
Good evening, Mr. Johnson. I trust that the journey from Hampstead didn't tire you.
I'll play along. How on earth did you...
Thank you, Bryson. You can retire to the kitchen.
Very good, madam.
Bryson will not retire to the kitchen. You see, psychics often require a silent or offstage partner. In large theatres, they will tour the front of house listening to gossip. If you see them on stage, it is in a seemingly supporting role, when really, they're running the show.
I see much, Mr. Johnson. I would ask that you do not smoke your Chesterfields in here.
Don't worry, I won't.
They may interfere with the ether. I have been blessed, Mr. Johnson. My gift is to reconnect with those that are no longer with us. Death is simply a stepping stone. If you can take a seat on the green chair,
The one without the straight edge on it.
we can begin to peer through the veil and perhaps connect with the spirit people. I will now communicate with the other side, Mr. Johnson. It is important that you remain seated throughout and that we maintain our connection.
Wouldn't want me examining things too closely.
To break our hold could have devastating consequences. You may experience things which are hard to explain, and if we are lucky, there may be ectoplasm.
They must have forgotten to do that bit.
If I begin to channel a spirit, then you may ask me questions. Hold my hand, Mr. Johnson.
Your hands are like ice, and a little bit damp from the ice she's been holding in her pocket.
I have begun to manifest a bridge between this world and the next. Now I call on the spirits, the great and the powerful. Talk to us here on earth. Join with us.
Let's leave the lights on this time.
We are ready. We must begin. Can you blow out the candle, please, Mr. Johnson?
Notice that the candle has been placed so I must move in order to reach it. This is called misdirection. It enables her to place the straight edge on her leg.
Is anybody there? If you are there, knock upon the table 3 times.
The straight edge comes into use.
The spirits have made contact. We welcome you, spirits, to our company. The spirits have made contact, Mr. Johnson. Do not be alarmed.
And cue Bryson.
The spirits are playful tonight. We seek an audience. Look, look. The spirits are making their connection. Do not worry, Mr. Johnson. They will not harm you.
Ow! What was that?
You may experience several sensations.
Ow!
Behave, you spirits! He is our guest. You may notice the room has suddenly become colder.
That's because Bryson has just opened a window.
Keep hold, Mr. Johnson. If you have a message for Mr. Johnson, ring the bell upon the table thrice. 1, 2, 3. That is thrice. Spirit, what is your name?
Anthony!
Anthony. A brother, maybe. Does this make sense to you, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, my brother was called Anthony.
Yes, Anthony!
Yes, I believe we are in the presence of Brother Anthony's spirit. Are you the unearthly manifestation of Brother Anthony?
This is where Bryson dropped his bell.
He is here with us. Look, look. He is here with us at the table. He is clutching his body. When he died, there was difficulty with his health.
This is a Barnum statement. You see, P.T. Barnum said of his circus, "We have something for everyone." The same can be true of this statement. When he died, he had difficulty with his health. Surely that's what death is. He had asthma.
He is coughing. His asthma sometimes made breathing difficult.
Barnum statement.
When he struggled to breathe, people worried about him.
Barnum statement.
But he is telling me now that is not the case. He is at peace and watching over you. Was your brother a happy man?
He is.
He's smiling. He's smiling as if with great love and affection. He wishes to talk with you. Call out to him.
Are you there, Anthony?
Send us a message, dearest Anthony, brother of Mr. Johnson.
This is where the search of my pockets became most fruitful. You see, inside the notebook I marked down 25th as brother's funeral. In actual fact, he's probably at home sitting down to a nice whiskey and cigar.
Do not despair on the 25th. Keep the date and make me proud. Do not argue about the money.
Money references are common amongst charlatans, since during a bereavement, the will is usually cause for family debate.
And let Lottie grieve as she needs to.
The Lottie reference is a bit of an odd one, since Lottie is my friend's grey Pekingese. Although I did mark down Lottie as next of kin in the notebook.
Anthony, thank you for your message. He is fading now. He is fading back into the peaceful beyond. Keep hold, Mr. Johnson. The spirits are making their connection. I believe there are several coming through. Show yourselves to us.
There really is nothing to say to this.
Are you there? Are you there? If you are there, knock twice.
Just making sure Bryson has left the room.
The connection is broken. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson. I believe that is the limit of the spirit world tonight.
It is.
But I certainly think we made a connection there.
We didn't.
I would be happy to reconnect for you at a later date.
No, thank you.
Ah, Bryson, Mr. Johnson is wonderful. If you can take his payment and show him out. Good night, Mr. Johnson.
My name is Harry Houdini. It is 1920. The Great War is over, and the world is beginning to heal. Our common humanity allows us to put our differences aside, but as we take our tentative steps towards a new world, it seems as if civilization is hanging by a thread. And then Spanish flu begins to claim its victims. It comes in waves, spreading out across the world, breaking healthcare systems. The daily death toll spins without mercy. The fine balance of society begins to break. We are encouraged to hide behind masks, to stay inside where possible. The shelves in shops are emptying. Food and household goods are being hoarded in bundles. We are told to practice social distancing. For some, the isolation becomes too much. They snap. We cannot visit our loved ones. The theatres have closed, leaving many artists and entertainers such as myself in financial ruin. I contracted the flu, and for the first time since 1894, I did not talk. But humans are resilient. We can always rebuild, and even when our lives seem like they're in a tangled and twisted mess, we can stand together. We can always rebuild. It's a delicate thing, but our collective humanity remains. We stay strong. Spanish flu predominantly took young men. It overloaded their immune systems, and with so many untimely deaths, the profiteers saw an opening. Psychics began a roaring trade. Vicks Vapor Rub invented a special influenza remedy. Ouija boards are being sold in shops, and psychics have adverts in newspapers. This is when I first met Mina Crandon. She brought with her her husband Leroy, her psychic persona Marjorie, and their intermittent spirit guide Walter.
I have had the gift since my earliest memory. As a child, I was a daydreamer, and I assumed that bridges to the other side were accessible to everybody. I was never alone because I always had playmates that would slide between worlds. It wasn't until I met the two great men of my life that I realized my purpose. My dear husband Leroy, he saw my talent in me and encouraged us to use our gift to benefit others.
Us?
I read a book, a great book, The Psychic Structures of the Gallagher Circle. It told of an incredible family that could move objects telepathically. It is a rare and often untapped gift, and I could see that these skills and abilities were present in dear Marjorie here.
And then Walter came into our lives.
Dear Walter, the third party in our marriage.
Walter was tragically killed by a train a few years ago. He visits us regularly.
Dear Walter. We never knew him in life, but we grieve for him.
We grieve for him.
Fascinating.
I warn you, Mr. Houdini. Walter will not take kindly to your sneering. Unfortunately, his language can be forthcoming, and he will have no inclination to help you if he is required to prove himself or jump through the degrading hoops of so-called science.
I should be most respectful should I meet Walter. I'm not looking to humiliate or mock.
You couldn't humiliate us if you tried, Mr. Houdini.
We have seen your conjuring tricks. They are very good for entertainment purposes. Maybe a little obvious, perhaps, but no doubt to the taste of the general public. We wish you every success in your little vaudeville shows, but that is not our line of work.
You are a man of great presence. You find it easy to talk to large groups of people. I see this in you.
The seance room is a scientific arena. We are not vanishing rabbits, appearing doves, and playing Find the Lady. We are serious scholars of the spiritual world.
I have to be in the correct mind to nurture the link between my earthly consciousness and the spirits. The connection I make is entirely emotional. We are breaking the convention that death is final. Clearly this is not the case.
Well, thank you for making that clear.
I detect that you are not an academic.
I'm simply trying to understand more fully the spiritual agenda.
There is no agenda, Mr. Houdini. The spirits do not gather and wait for your involvement. They intervene in our world to bring comfort to the bereaved. They are good spirits. We do not concern ourselves with dark arts.
Walter has been so helpful to those who have lost someone. He has reunited mothers with their poor past babes, fathers with their sons. The war has left a hole in the heart of us, Mr. Houdini. If my gift can provide some hope to people, then I'm willing to sacrifice my soul and energy to the spirits.
Sadly, you are aware there are some fakes around.
Yes, I agree. Yes, and we have met them. There are those that falsely claim to have a gift, but we cannot abide hoaxers and false prophets.
Well, on that we can agree.
I hope you are not making an insinuation of fakery, Mr. Houdini.
I would never accuse anyone of anything without seeing their full repertoire.
I agree that there are fakes out there, but if their fakery can provide some comfort to people, then is that such a bad thing?
Well, who are we to decide what lies are comforting?
Who are you to decide that people's beliefs need to be shattered? That seems unnecessarily cruel to those that have already suffered. Have you ever lost anyone, Mr. Houdini?
I have.
Your mother and father,
Yes.
they stand behind you. It is faint, but they watch over you. Always.
I'm not sure I want them to see everything that I do.
You can't help that, Mr. Houdini. And I'm sorry to say that they disapprove of your actions regarding the spirit world.
Fascinating.
Do you still talk to them?
I do, but I don't expect them to answer back.
Where do you think they are now?
Well, I don't know, and I'm not sure anyone else does either.
Nina's abilities are highly celebrated. She has often helped the police with their inquiries. You may have heard of the Hampton case.
I have not.
The Hampton estate is vast and covers about 1/10 of Hampshire. The young daughter went missing one evening. That very night, Mina began to see within her mind a vision. She woke me to say that she could see a body of water. A week later, the pictures were in the newspaper, and we immediately contacted the family and the police because we believed the child to have a connection to the water's edge.
I am cold. I can hear the waves. Walter kept repeating and repeating.
Our letter was acknowledged by the family, who requested the police trawl the lake.
And the child was uncovered in the lake.
The child's body was recovered in woods adjacent to the water's edge. You see, that's why Walter could hear the waves. Oh, no scientist has yet been able to explain this. Can you,
I
Mr.
can't.
Houdini? No.
Precisely.
I can't because it is hearsay.
I can assure you it happened.
I'm not saying it didn't. However, I believe in the value and importance of evidence. And hearsay is not evidence to me. Now, I should most like to see your skills demonstrated. I heard you can perform automatic writing when in a trance.
We would not say before.
My Walter does not perform, but it is true that he can write through me. If Walter feels that the connection is strong and that there is no blockage in the flow of energy, then he can inhabit my body and use my hands to write symbols, characters, and messages.
No scientist has ever been able to explain it.
Would you be willing to show me?
Mina?
I do not feel strong enough today. If I was given enough time to prepare myself spiritually, I could, of course, but Walter requires slate and chalk.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I have both. Slate and chalk.
This wouldn't do at all. What wood is being used to frame this?
Oh, I don't know. Pine?
That would block any energy flow immediately.
It is clear that you understand very little, Mr. Houdini. If you would give a pine-bordered slate to Mina and expect Walter to make contact.
Actually, I think it's maple.
Whichever. This time of month is not good for Walter. He tends to be less perceptive during the second quarter.
Well, perhaps Walter will be more available when the moon moves over a bit, eh?
It is not as simple as you make out, Mr. Houdini. If you wish to see Mina's skills, you can book an appointment at our house, and if we are lucky, spirits may join us.
Well, we should certainly arrange that.
Yes. It will be an education for you, Mr. Houdini, to see the chasm that exists between your entertainment tricks and our deep understanding of the world of spiritualism.
Would you care to see one of my entertainment tricks?
Oh, yes, we would be thrilled to have the great Houdini perform for us. You are celebrated across the world, and although we do not respect your conjurings and writings, I must say, they are seemingly popular. We hear that you rarely do so nowadays.
Mr. Cran, I will write a word prediction down on this slate. Now, Doctor, can you tell me what word, do you know what word is written on this slate?
No.
The Crandons walked out shortly afterwards, although they did provide me with more information for my letters on debunking. I continued to tour my show, but I became increasingly interested in certain individuals that could pass off simple magic tricks as supernatural ability. Perhaps it lay in the audience's wish to believe.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for your featured act of the evening. The handcuffed king and prison breaker. Nothing on earth can hold him a prisoner. The world's greatest escape artist, Mr. Harry Houdini.
Ladies and gentlemen, in 1790, an upholsterer named Guilleret invented the straight jacket. It was used in asylums where patients were too dangerous to themselves and others. Later, it was used in facilities where staffing levels were low and patients still needed containment. In some of our very own institutions, the straitjacket was left on the patient for so long that their skin began to grow around the straps. From Danvers to Topeka, canvas and leather stitched together in order to tether the insane. But how does it work? Well, the arms are folded across the patient, buckling them from behind, fastening them so the patient resembles a parcel. The crotch strap prevents removal of the jacket from over the head. With the arms out of action, the patient's balance is compromised. It becomes too difficult to maintain a standing position, so the patient sits passive and contained. Passive and contained. I refuse to be either, so I learn to escape. But in order to escape, I must first be imprisoned. And for an element of showmanship, it adds to my own personal belief, if my incarcerator is a conscientious and trustworthy member of the community. So, while I'm in town, I like to invite a prison chief or prison warden, or tonight, direct from Broadmoor Lunatic Asylum for the Criminally Insane, Dr. Frank Reed. Thank you very much, Doctor. Just this way. That's it, Doctor. Yes, don't mind the lights. And there will do just nicely. Hello, Dr. Reed. Now, could you please confirm, have you ever, in your long-established career as a psychiatrist, ever seen a patient escape from a straitjacket?
Oh, no, they have not.
You're sure? No dangerous lunatic has ever thrown away their shackles, scurried down the corridors and became a famous magician?
Well, not that I know of, no.
And I'm never going back. Now, Doctor, could you please confirm this is a straitjacket from your asylum?
Yes, it's a regulation straitjacket from Broadmoor Medical Stores. Yes, yeah, issue number, let's see here, 0913. Oh, size extra small.
And could you confirm there are no gimmicks or tools to aid my escape?
No, that's fine to me, yes.
Thank you very much, Doctor. You may now restrain me the same way you would your most dangerous of patients. Thank you, Doctor. You can do it as tightly as possible.
Right, yes. Right, here we go. You okay?
Yes, thank you, Doctor. Don't worry about me. There we are, Doctor.
Want to make sure I get it just right?
Yes, thank you, Doctor. We do want to make sure I'm restrained in the tightest possible manner.
Ah, that's better.
Thank you.
Right, that's that bit. Right.
Thank you.
Here we go, Sonny boy. There we go, yes. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's fine, Doctor.
One moment. We go last bit there.
Thank you, Doctor. That's it, Doctor.
Yes, fine. Good. There we go. Perfect. And
Thank you very much, Dr. Reed. Could you please confirm that I am restrained in the regulation manner?
yes, you are, certainly.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I promised you the thrill of an accomplished trick. However, it has been necessary for me to endure the torture of learning how to bend, contort, and break my body. I will now attempt the impossible, to escape. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Harry Houdini. No prison can hold me. No canvas or leather can keep me from my freedom. I continue to tour the world. My show reaches new lands. In 1915, I was in Moscow. My show has sold out the Yar Theatre. We get message that an envoy from the palace is on its way, and they wish to meet with me in a private room off the theatre bar. He will bring with him his translator. With trepidation, I oblige. Before I am introduced, I know who it is, since his face is posted on every revolutionary poster across the city. Grigory Yevemovich Rasputin regards me with disdain. I smile and introduce myself.
I translate.
I congratulate the little magician on his successful show.
I translate, taking care to hide the sarcasm.
I ask Rasputin for the reason of the meeting.
I translate.
I ask the little magician if he is here to court the attention of my Tsar.
I translate.
I explain that it had not crossed my mind.
I translate.
I fix the magician with my stare. I find him hard to read. I explain that my Tsar already has a holy man, that his little tricks and escapes will be of little interest when compared with Rasputin, who God himself has chosen. I watch him closely as I am translated.
I translate. I feel the tension across the table. My attention switches from the quick movements of the clean-cut stage performer and the beastly stench of the Russian mystic. They stare at each other.
I break first.
He breaks first.
There is no translation needed.
I offer Rasputin a card trick.
I translate.
I smile. This man is no threat to Rasputin. I will indulge him. He brings out a deck of cards.
I ask Rasputin if he has ever seen a tarot deck.
I translate.
I laugh. I have seen old gypsy women claim that they can tell fortunes. Is that what this magician will do? Let him continue. Let the mouse perform to the bear.
I translate.
I shuffle the deck. I pass the deck towards Rasputin and ask him to shuffle the deck too.
I begin to translate.
I stop the translation. It is obvious what he wants. I shuffle the deck.
I take the cards back. I spread the cards across the table to show that they are fully shuffled. I pick the cards back up and put them neatly back together. I pass the cards to Rasputin and ask him to deal off 12 cards.
I deal off 12.
I tell Rasputin a story.
I translate the story.
I listen.
Once, long ago, there lived a hermit. Now the hermit had long beard, shabby clothes, a foul temper, and stinking breath. The hermit was walking through the winter snow, dragging a sled behind him. The hermit's stomach burned with hunger, and his feet bled, but the hermit was clever and resourceful. He knew how to play a part, how to spin a tale. The hermit had few skills, save for manipulation, and in the right circumstances, this was all that he needed. Soon, the hermit found himself looking up at a tower, a giant towering palace in which lived an emperor and an empress with their children, the youngest of whom was a boy. He was as small and as slender as a wand. Now the boy was often ill, and his panic brought him close to death. The hermit found through soft words and gentle gestures he could calm the boy and make him feel better. It worked because the boy believed that it worked. But the hermit told people that his powers came from God, but really he knew they were just an illusion. The empress was very happy that the hermit could assist her child and make him feel better. So, the empress invited the hermit to join the court. Once the hermit was a member of the court, he told them that he must be kept on and paid, because he alone could save the tower from the devil. Now the empress loved her children, and she loved her God. So, soon, the empress and the hermit became lovers. And that meant that the hermit was all-powerful. His word was law. But really, he knew it was just an illusion, as fragile as a snowflake. To the tower there soon came a magician. Now the magician could do all the same tricks as the hermit, but the magician never pretended to be anything other than a magician, and he could see the hermit for what he really was. The hermit confronted the magician and threatened him, because ultimately the hermit was afraid of judgment, justice, and being found out to be nothing but a vile hermit who treated everyone that he met like a fool.
I leave the table.
I leave the table.
I leave Russia.
revelation, but not, I imagine, an unsuspected one for those of us connected with the spiritual realm, and who are open-minded to the mysteries of the natural world. It is almost cliché that the fairies have appeared to the gentle and kind natures of two children. Children being, of course, more receptive to these beautiful and luminous creatures. The young ladies in question, Frances Griffiths and Elsie Wright, I have met, and was overpowered by their quiet demeanours and their calm acceptance of the immaterial. This author wonders that if perhaps more adults were able to put aside their skepticism and to connect more fully with the unimaginable, then what other phenomena would become accepted parts of our day-to-day lives? This very skepticism has become the main barrier to scientific inquiry of these matters. My good friend William Hope, who produced a most fascinating set of spirit photographs, has been attacked and harassed for daring to challenge the status quo. William's images clearly show how spirits are always with us, guarding and watching over us. As I have written before to this publication, the deaths of my first wife and son Kingsley are made easier to bear by the knowledge that they are still with me, but on another plane of existence. For those like William Hope, I extend my thanks and gratitude for showing us proof and giving vindication to those feelings that many of us felt deeply within our hearts. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It's wonderful, darling.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to Eric reading it. Are we using the drawing room tonight?
They asked that we set the table up in here. They were very specific with their instructions. They were keen for us to examine everything. They're the most fascinating pair. We're in for a real treat. I must say, I'm feeling quite connected myself.
We must reserve judgment and keep an open mind. But I agree that they truly seem to possess a second sight. The husband Leroy is a man of science, a former doctor. He is a most charming gentleman, and Marjorie is even humble and almost timid.
I often find that those with the most profound abilities are the most kindest and generous of souls. I feel certain that if Kingsley were to speak with anyone, it would be the Grandons. What time is Eric arriving?
Right now. How are you, Jean?
I'm very well. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for joining us.
Have you been waiting outside the door for us to mention you?
I have.
Oh, well, come on in and take a seat. Are you looking forward to tonight?
I am.
You're going to be respectful, aren't you, Eric? You're not going to disrupt proceedings?
Yes, I shall be most respectful. And if I come to any conclusions, I'll wait till the end.
After they've left.
Or just before.
Behave yourself. Now, have you had a chance to catch Strand magazine?
Ah, yes, I did. I saw your article. It was very well written.
But you disagree with the assertions.
Obviously, but your punctuation was profoundly moving.
I'm going to go check on the hors d'oeuvres.
Oh, have I upset her in some way?
Well, no more than usual. But I think she finds your brand of scornful skepticism somewhat deflated.
Then I promise to say positive and cheerful. Ah, a spirit cabinet. We are in for a treat.
Oh, you've seen one before then?
I have. Now I'm assuming inside is some kind of musical instrument or some papers perhaps.
Well, a tambourine. Mrs. Crandon has allowed us full inspection of all of the items and the cabinet. They've been here since this morning.
Is our guest to be restrained?
Yes. She has allowed Jean to search her before the séance. I think even you should be satisfied with that.
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Tell me, Arthur, why does the medium have to be behind a curtain? Surely the spirits can manifest without a curtain there.
Well, it's a private matter, surely.
Yeah.
You might as well ask why a woman's bathroom has a door.
I believe I can replicate the effects. May I try?
Oh, certainly, yes. Jean would no doubt wish to see this. Jean, Eric is going to perform for us. Oh, 2 experiences in one day. Jean, go ahead, my friend.
You see before you the spirit cabinet. I will now manifest the spirits inside. To prove that there can be no trickery, I will allow Arthur to restrain me.
Oh, restrain the great Houdini. I thought that was impossible.
We shall make an exception. Now, Arthur, we will pass the rope between my legs and cross it over at the top. Just like that. Now, place it around my wrists and tie it as tightly as you can. Now, don't hold back, Arthur. Nice and tight. And one more time.
One more, yes. Certainly. How's that?
Yes, thank you, Arthur.
Yes.
Happy?
Yes, I am, yes.
Being open to the spirits will put me in an element of danger. So, if you see any movement from behind the curtain, please open the curtain to check on my well-being. I will now enter a trance-like state. When I become drowsy, please close the curtain.
Oh, what is this?
The papers, Arthur. The papers, 15.
Was our Kingsley's birth date. Look, 15th of November. Oh! Jean,
Uncle, wait!
Punch him up.
He's
Eric,
going to hurt
Eric, wake
himself!
up now. Hey. Whoa, so you're safe. You're among friends.
I'll
Here, man.
fetch him a brandy.
No, Jean, he doesn't drink.
Well,
Are you
fetch
okay?
him something.
No need. Please, Arthur, tell me, what happened?
Oh, it was just
Jean.
fearful. The spirits manifested. I could feel them. The room became instantly colder.
Well, noticeably.
And the tambourine, it was banging and shaking. It had an unearthly sound as if someone was trying to break it.
Yeah, and then you see the tambourine, it floated out across the top of the cabinet, and then, well, it just flew at us.
And the papers, Arthur. Tell him about the papers.
Yes, look. Here. 15.
Yes.
Written in a ghostly hand. 15. Our Kingsley's birth date. Eric, what if the spirit was Kingsley himself?
Oh, Arthur, I'm sorry. 15 is nothing more than my collar size. I didn't know of the connection. This is just an ugly trick. There's no mysticism in it at all, I'm afraid.
Saw it with our own eyes.
What you see is very rarely what actually happened. You see, the trick I've shown you is commonplace amongst psychics. It requires very little talent.
I know what I saw. Anyway, I have preparations for this evening when our guests will be joining us.
Go on then. Show us how you fooled us.
Arthur, I'm not meaning to upset you. I'm simply trying to show you that the abilities of psychic I've seen so far can easily be reproduced by magicians.
Let's see then.
Right, well, you restrained me.
Yes, I did it myself. I thought it inescapable, but then again, I suppose you are the great Houdini.
You don't have to be the great me in order to escape Levante's knot. Do it again. I was very clear on how you should tie this. Underneath my legs, crossing over at the top, and then around my wrists. Now this time tie it as tightly as you possibly can, Arthur. That's it. Yes, thank you, Arthur. And once again. There we are. Happy?
Yes, if anything, it's tighter than the first time. Shall I even bother to close the curtain?
No need.
Well, you have obviously proven your point, and it is a cruel and futile one at that. Will you come out of there now? I would ask that you do not ruin tonight's experiment with this nonsense.
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Of course you can reproduce similar effects as Mina. Even Marjorie will freely admit that there are frauds out there, but I am sorry, Eric. These tricks are a poor imitation of spiritualism. A layman can pour a glass of wine, but only a priest can give communion.
You act as if I'm spoiling something, Arthur, but I don't think that I am. I'm just willing to show you that there is no involvement from the spirits in these manifestations.
You always come to seances with a refusal to believe.
I'm not refusing to believe. I'm open to the idea of being convinced. If a medium can prove to me that they have supernatural powers under test conditions, then I will freely admit it. And wouldn't that be a wonderful thing, Arthur? It would change everything we know about modern science. But I ask you to consider very carefully why, if the spirits are so desperately trying to make contact, do they do it by throwing around a tambourine? Why are their messages always vague or simplistic?
That'll be the Crandons. We can continue this discussion later, but while they are in my house, you will treat them with courtesy and respect.
Of course.
Right, they're here. You behave and put that tambourine back.
My wife Bess has been my stage assistant since 1894. I met her on Coney Island when she was a singer and dancer in the Floral Sisters Act. She's been touring with me ever since and working on my show. We never had any of our own children, but we did have our animals. We had Charlie, our dog, whom I would smuggle across borders when we were on tour. I was always terrified of being detected, but I always wanted him with us. We had Bobby, a fox terrier, whom Bess found in Harlem. We taught Bobby to escape from shackles and even a miniature straitjacket. Then we had our parrots, Laura, Polly, and Pat. Pat had learnt how to pick locks, so he would routinely escape from his cage. We had our Avery outside with our eagle Lincoln. There was Petey, our turtle, who used to dig up the flower beds. And then there was Rudy the rabbit. He would never appear from hats, but would always appear at the sight of lettuce. And although not really a pet, we did have Jenny, our elephant, whom was very gentle, and we would later vanish from routines. Bess and I filled up our home with heartbeats, just us and our animals. For me, family is whatever you make it. We did, however, realise that one of us would pass away first. So, and being the great debunker of mediums, and given their lack of scruples, I thought that one of them would try and claim us after we had died. So, Bess and I entered a pact. In the 10 years following one of our deaths, the departed would spend any available energy to them to try and make contact. The bereaved would recognise this as genuine contact by the use of a coded message. I devised a coded message which was the very first song that I ever heard Bess sing in Cabaret, Rosabella, followed by a series of written words in magician's code. You see, every magical duo on stage has a secret code. It means that they can communicate with each other without the audience knowing what they are saying, which is very useful if one of you is about to enter a water chamber. Now, the code. Answer, tell, pray answer, look, tell, answer, tell. This was our code. What it meant was, answer was the letter B, tell was the letter E, pray answer L, look is I, and answer is V. It spells out the word believe. Bess and I were the only people who knew this code. So, if a medium were ever to repeat it, we would recognise it as genuine. Arthur began lecturing on the power of mediumship. I began lecturing on the fakery. Scientific America magazine created a competition in which the prize was $2,500 for anyone that could produce a genuine spirit photograph. Along with engineers, physicists, and Technicolor developers, I sat on the judging panel. We were soon contacted by Mr. Leroy Crandon. He wished us to watch his wife as she produced ectoplasm from her mouth, and her spirit guide Walter would give messages. I decided that these claims deserved further investigation.
How dare he!
I'll crucify him. How dare he stand against the most celebrated medium of the modern age?
That money is ours!
It would appear that the summer house will not be extended this year.
Disgusting little Jew!
That's what they're like, obsessed with money. If he doesn't pay, I'll sue. There was a gentleman's agreement, and that counts in court, that counts.
I say we jump through Houdini's hoops. But for more money, they can double the reward. Scientific America, there's nothing scientific or even American about them. They investigated me once and I passed. I can pass again for this magician. I say we invite him. It'll be worth it to see that smug look wiped off his nasty little face.
You know, my dear, if Mr. Houdini were to attend, we could cook him dinner before the séance. You know, there are certain chemicals that we would use to sedate patients. As far as I am aware, they are completely undetectable. Maybe if Mr. Houdini's faculties were a little eased around the edges, he may be more willing to see sense.
He'd use it against us. I need him clear-headed and humiliated. I want him to know he's been beaten. I want him to come grovelling to us for forgiveness. Put that in the contract. If he can change the terms, then so can we. We want our money, and I want it written in the newspapers that this trickster unreservedly apologises to the great Crandons.
It would be worth discussing the order of the evening. It would be of great value. A little preparation would be a useful use of time.
Walter will arrive as usual.
Houdini will want the lights on, so perhaps Walter can be persuaded to write through you.
I think that Walter will gain a message from Houdini's dear mother.
Yes. I imagine that she will be disappointed by his lack of belief and for his chosen career as a liar.
Almost certainly so. Walter will want that driven home. He'll want to
know, if Mr. Houdini wishes to be certain that there is nothing that you could be concealing, then we can assure him that there is nothing to be concealed. You see, mediums of the Middle Ages would often perform without clothes.
It would be possible.
It would be of great value to those observing us, and even assist those in the doubt of those that don't believe.
I believe that during the séance, Walter will tip over the corner table, use the megaphone and ring the bell.
And how will Walter end the evening?
I think that Walter will have a very important message for such a guest as the great Houdini. Perhaps a death prediction.
A premature one?
Premature, soon, and traumatic.
So tragic.
So tragic.
I think it would be pertinent if we were to visit the séance room and see if we can channel Walter. We want to make sure he is as prepared as possible for the upcoming event. We want to ensure that he gets it just right.
Oh, of course.
Lead on, Mrs. Crandon.
Thank you, Doctor. Will I be needing clothes for this rehearsal?
Oh, I think not.
In 1922, Howard Carter opened up Tutankhamun's tomb. The papers say that he released a curse. The headlines rang out across the world as Howard's team revealed to us the long-departed boy. Curses, ancient ghosts disturbed. Carter has released forces which he cannot imagine. Now, I don't know if Carter released a curse, but I do know that he released the psychics from scrutiny. They jumped on the event, and soon there were mumbled curses, death predictions, writings in hieroglyphics on spirit slates, and ancient Egyptian kings' voices dominating the séance room, every part of the performance wrapped up like a mummy in the Western terror of death. Fear sadly breeds fear, and the psychics learn to farm it. Now you may think that it is difficult for me to complain, since this apprehension towards death in the West made my career. Perhaps you are right. Because of this apprehension towards death, people are willing to flock to see those who play on the edges of mortality. I am the death-defying Harry Houdini. But the safe arenas of my magic show can become invaded by those who are willing to pretend that they have some vague notion of an afterlife. Without fear of death, there would be no psychics. Perhaps there would be no Houdini either.
This is where the magician proves his lack of understanding. You see, there is no death. You couldn't die for the life of you. We cannot explain how it works, other than to say, or to explain, that it is based on love. If you are able to open your heart to love, then it flows out.
Many times we are asked if we can raise the dead. We cannot, but you can. If there is someone who wishes to speak with you, then let us know and we can allow them passage. My mouth and body are a bridge between the two worlds. Of course, it does not always work. Sometimes the messages are muddled in translation. All I can hear is the faint echo of a name or a location. It is like tuning in a radio. Sometimes the signal is clear and loud.
ethereal, a science of uncertainty, a truth that is twisting its way through the brambles of unbelief.
Our audiences increased.
As did our wages.
We, of course, showed little interest in the accounting, but our fees increased due to the demand and the additional expense of travel.
Mostly, Walter got it exactly right.
Sometimes he was less certain. It really depended on the flow and the belief of the audience. Those that would block the pathway with their skepticism would of course gain little from the experience.
Fortunately, Walter was always willing to join us and make our evenings enjoyable for those that sought to make a connection.
Walter was sometimes joined by other voices, sad voices which echoed through time. The ancient Assyrians, Egyptians, and Persians had many tales to tell. For 3,500 years, King Tut had been desperate to leave his tomb. And if the belief in our circle was strong enough, and the love flowed like the Nile, then the great boy king would grace us with a message. He could speak with those that had passed, and could advise the living. The great boy king could comfort the believers. It was beautiful.
He would often assist us with our police work.
It was exhausting for me, but on occasion I was joined by voices of victims of violent crime. On the morning of the Wall Street bomb, I awoke to Walter screaming. He kept repeating, "It's the communists and the anarchists." "Look in the rubble," he said, "look in the rubble, but begin clearing it slowly. Do not rush or you will miss the messages." I was then joined by other voices, telling us to contact their families. They wanted us to say goodbye for them.
We immediately contacted the police and passed on our vital message. I am told that it is our intervention which allowed to slow down the process of the operation. Sadly, the crime was never solved. And yet, it is of no doubt that Walter's intervention helped allow the affected families time to process their grief.
As did our page advertisement to Séance for the bereaved.
We even raised our prices to show our commitment to the families. You see, for the great Mina Crandon and her faithful companion, the 20s roared.
They were shameless. In conjuring, the important part of the trick is not what you see in front of you. It's how you retell it afterwards. You see, you will exaggerate so you don't seem foolish. The same is true with psychics. Psychics never make promises. You see, when you go to see a psychic, you'll retell it like, "She knew my mother's maiden name." You won't say things like, "She took 35 guesses at my mother's maiden name, then worked it out." If I say to you right now, "The great Houdini will now pull a rabbit from this hat," when my hand comes out empty, you think that I'm a very poor act. You don't think I'm very good at all. You might even ask for your money back. But if a psychic says, "I may now be able to pull a rabbit from this hat," sometimes a rabbit will appear, sometimes it won't appear. All you have to do is believe. When my hand comes out empty, it's not my fault. It's yours, because you didn't believe quite enough. Oh well, perhaps the energy of the hat wasn't quite right. I'm just the poor psychic that tried to bring you a rabbit, but on this occasion we couldn't do it because you didn't believe quite enough. Perhaps if you come back next time and you pay, then maybe we'll be able to produce a rabbit. At the request of the Crandons, Scientific America raised the prize to $5,000. The Crandons, whom by their own admission cared very little about the money, invited me to join them for a séance. A strange back and forth happened between me and the Crandons. They would invite me to a séance, I would explain their fraudulence, they would adapt and come back. One trick they were particularly proud of is when Mrs. Crandon would place a bell between my legs and it would ring. So, what I did, I placed a rope around my leg and I tied it as tightly as I could and I left it there for several days. The result was an overly bruised and sensitive leg that could feel the slightest of movements. So when Mrs. Crandon placed the bell between my legs on my chair and she put her foot between mine and began to poke the bell with her big toe, I could feel everything. So, at the next séance, I put in some further restrictions.
Are you comfortable, my dear?
This is ridiculous.
We have to play our part, my love.
This has nothing to do with psychic ability and everything to do with humiliation.
But I'm sure that Walter can present himself even with these restrictions.
I think it would be worth explaining to our skeptical guests that if Walter is less forthcoming this evening, then it is largely due to the insulting tests that I have been submitted to. Walter will no doubt be loyal to me, and to see me tested in this way would annoy him no end. I am very uncomfortable.
Have you been to the water closet?
I wish I had before it too.
I shall go and collect him. And then we can begin.
Can you turn my feet to 2 o'clock, please?
Right. This way, please, Mr. Houdini.
Good evening, Mina. Please don't get up.
I must say, Mr. Houdini, we are a little perturbed by all of this. It hardly seems necessary after my dear wife has already proved her abilities beyond any reasonable doubt.
I'm afraid I disagree, Doctor. I still have my doubts and I believe they are reasonable.
Your friend Mr. Conan Doyle doesn't think so. We were fortunate enough on several occasions to be invited to his home. And at our most recent table reading, he commented that in his opinion, as an expert in both the spiritual realm and the art of logic and detection, that he viewed my practices as entirely truthful.
There are many things I admire about Arthur. Above all, his willingness to see the best in everyone. He is a brilliant writer and a fantastic football player, but Arthur is not a magician. He doesn't think like a magician because he still believes in magic. Now, shall we begin?
Certainly. Do you have the money with you?
I do.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, Mr. Houdini, you have asked to be given comprehensive proof of mediumship, and I believe that we can offer you that. You will see there on the table a deck of cards. Please, I invite you to pick them up and examine them closely. You will notice that there is a set of symbols on each card, a circle, square, triangle, cross or waving lines and star. Please put them down on the table and mix them up. Come, give them a good casino wash, if you will. Right. Now, I would like you to pick 4 out at random and then hand them to me, if you will. Thank you. Now, I will hold them up for Marjorie, and Walter, by whispering in her thoughts, will tell her what card I am holding up.
Wavy lines. Star. Circle. Square.
Thank you.
I enjoyed that.
Yes, perhaps then you are beginning to understand. Perhaps you are beginning to open your heart and your mind.
Yes, perhaps I am. It was a good trick.
No, there was no trickery involved.
You examined the cards, you gave them randomly.
I did.
Well, there you are then.
I also noticed that the good doctor held them in several different positions. If I had to guess, I would say this was wavy lines, this position was square, this one's triangle, and that is star. Those are the usual ones.
But if I did, it was pure coincidence.
Oh, perhaps we could do it again. This time, I will place the cards face down on the table and point to them. Marjorie?
Walter told me he would feel tested this evening. He
I-
warned me this would happen.
Yes, I think it would be best if we moved on.
I'm getting a vision.
Stay where you are, Mr. Houdini. I have seen this before. Marjorie is here. She's going to be channeled.
Who are you, magician? Who are you?
Answer while the connection is strong.
Oh, I'm Harry Houdini. Who are you?
I am Walter. You dare to question me. You dare to show me up. I, who have crossed over to this world several times to send you messages. You would mock me and make fun. You will be sorry, magician. Your filthy tricks and dirty practices will keep you from the truth. I will speak no longer in the light. If the magician wishes to learn, then he will do so in the darkness of his own creation.
The lights! The lights!
I am Walter. I sit here with your mother and father. They are disgusted. You betrayed them. You embarrassed them. Your father wishes you to know that he feels nothing but contempt for you. Your mother sends you a message. She is sorry that things were left the way they were, and to tell Bess to look for a group of 3. The money is not worth the arguments. Give Mrs. Crandon her due. She has done so much good. There is an older gentleman, a grandfather. He always knew you would become a magician because you would learn tricks and show him. I must go now. But see how I can move across the room. I am not tethered to this feeble human body. Listen. Listen to the tolling bell of your skepticism. Listen and believe.
Mr. Crandon, you seem to have left your seat.
Yes. I did.
There is a perfectly reasonable explanation for this.
Which is?
Obviously, a manifestation,
That manifestation.
has pulled my poor husband across the room.
And supplied him with a fishing rod.
Yes.
And attached a bell to it?
Well, yes.
I think that is the only explanation that makes any sense. I suddenly feel so very faint.
Yes, well, I think that probably concludes our evening's entertainment. It was very lovely to meet Walter. Mr. Crandon, before you pass out, I suggest you get your wife out of the box. I think it goes without saying you won't be receiving the $5,000. Thank you.
Well, clearly this is a mistake. You
Yes.
are asking us to account for the strange happenings of the supernatural. You are asking us to explain things which cannot be explained.
Yes, that's quite right. I can see how this may look to the untrained eye, but I'm sorry, Mr. Houdini. I do not see how the actions of the spirits tonight can be used to discredit us.
We are serious academics.
Yes, serious academics.
We have no interest in your money, Mr. Houdini.
Yes, we would have accepted it as a matter of courtesy. But as I see that you are so closed-minded, we will take our leave of you. Let us go, Marjorie.
We would ask you to keep tonight's events to yourself, Mr. Houdini. The great work of the Crandons cannot be undone by a third-rate conjurer who is fumbling with a torch. Good evening.
You may think that this final exposure of the Crandons would end their career. Unfortunately, you would be wrong. Charlatans are nothing if not pernicious. I do not believe that they offer any real comfort, but there will always be an audience. There will always be those that are willing to believe, and a comforting lie can be easier than confronting grief. But you should never forget that what they tell is a lie, an ugly farce. Take these spirit slates. The psychic tells you that it is some long dead someone communicating with you through these slates. Perhaps it is. Perhaps somewhere in the world it is. But the same effect can be done with a magic trick. I have for the last 45 years been playing a part. I pretend that I can do incredible things, and I use skill and trickery. You know that I am pretending because I put magician on my poster. I don't put wizard. I have entirely earthly powers. Take away the curtain of your belief, and much like this spirit cabinet, there is nothing behind. The veil may be well crafted. It may not look like a veil, but its job is always to obscure. And no matter what the person on stage is telling you, it is important to remember that the curtain is there. It's keeping you from the mundane truth. To the magician, you are the audience. To the psychic, you are a sucker. I love to show you tricks because I love to see you entertained. Much in the same way that a comedian loves to make you laugh. I love to see your astonishment. I love to see you try and work out my puzzles. Every magician the world over is exactly the same. They learn a new trick, and they can't wait to start showing you. No psychic will ever perform for free. If you're not paying, your dead relatives are not talking. There's no art in their game, no subtlety. It's just a cruel trick designed to bind you. When my mother and father died, I felt as if a hole had opened up in my chest. I felt the clawing agony of grief. Every single day I think of them. They were beautiful people. And as well-mannered as they both were, I do not believe that they would have any interest in speaking with the Crandons. They wouldn't have played their bizarre guessing games. If they wanted to talk with their son, they would have come to me directly. Every day I honour their memory by giving them a peaceful rest. I don't attempt to drag them up into drawing rooms and have their memories funneled through trick-shaped holes. The dignity of the dead remains in their silence. Life is only valuable because it is finite. Lives must die. Passing through nature into eternity. It's insulting to drag them up. You don't need spiritualism if you have the human spirit, and if you truly cared for those that you love. Don't let fraudsters hold them hostage.
The great Houdini died in his wife's arms 31st of October 1926. The great Crandons were able to bring him back several times via Séance. Our dear magician friend was able to apologize for his lack of integrity. His remorse for his ill treatment of our skill was clear. Those that witnessed it were moved to tears. He was able to ring bells for us, answer questions through the Ouija board, and was even channeled a few times to apologize. Sir Arthur was also able to reconcile his friendship. We grieve for our dear friend Harry.
We grieve for him.
We grieve for him.
Now, my dear wife, do you think that Mr. Houdini will talk to us tonight?
Well, we can certainly try. Harry Houdini! Are you there? If you are there, knock thrice. Knock thrice, for if you are there, Harry Houdini. There seems to be some interference. He can be so troublesome. Harry Houdini! Are you with your parents? Do you believe in us now? Harry Houdini, send us a message, answer us. How dare you remain silent? We command you, answer us from wherever you are. What is death?
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching at home. I hope you all enjoyed that and hope you had a good time. I need to thank quickly before we go the Arts Council England, since they funded this project and made it so we could put it on. Also as well, while I've got people watching, hopefully, thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Obviously for us it's a little bit different because we've not got an audience here to bounce off. It is just, there's two people in the room. We've got Harry up in the box and Josh as well doing all the tech stuff here for us. So thanks to them guys as well. But before I go, I need to do a little plug as well. Me and Tom, this is Tom, and Richard, who is the writer and director of the show, we're going to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this year, which is very good. Not with this show, unfortunately. Perhaps this show will go in the future, in another year. But we're taking a show called Foxtales up there. Foxtales is a children's show based on Brothers Grimm stories. You play a puppet fox called Reynard the Fox, and I play Grip the Raven. We're two puppets, and Richard, the director, is a storyteller. We actually wrote a book as well that goes along with that. And you can buy that book. Hooray! Everyone's clicking off now, no one's watching. But you can buy that book. It's at laughingfoxproductions.com. You can find us Laughing Fox Productions online, or Foxtails. You find us on Facebook. We're selling the book. It's £8. It's a children's book. It's fully illustrated. It's a very lovely book for a gift and stuff like that. And we kind of need the money because we need to pay to go to Edinburgh. So that'd be really nice. But once again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed it out there. See you all later. Goodbye.